Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. So we're finally going to get a bonus buck sale this Friday. I guess that's going to be September 13th. And I did a video about a month ago just running through the market, looking at how things were doing, what the prices were, and talking about them. I got a lot of good feedback on it, so I figured I'd do it again. I put it on the Kanban to do it every month from now on, and now that we're having a bonus buck sale in a couple days, kind of lines up nicely. I figured I'd just come through and see. Call time set boxes 124 market. Not something I would have expected. I definitely would have thought Zendikar Rising set boxes would have dried up a lot more by now. $99 market price. Midnight Hunt set boxes still 93. I think they're going to suffer for a long time. They were right there at kind of the peak of the Print to Oblivion era of 2021. So maybe pretty hard for it to get some traction. It's interesting that Modern Horizons 2 set boxes are still only 201 market price. They've been stuck there for a long time in that kind of 200 to 210 area. And despite the fetch lands having already gone up quite a bit, the boxes are still stuck there. I don't know if it's approaching the point where you could break it for singles. Probably not, considering how long that product was in print and how many boxes got broken for singles. All you have to do is go look at the individual fetch land card listings and just see how deep the market is. It is ridiculous. Now, 112 for set boxes of Crimson Vow, that's one that has been surprising consistently for a couple of years now. It's been in that 100 to 110 range for a long time. Like they severely short printed the set boxes, or maybe absolutely no one wanted to buy the draft boxes, and so the set boxes got pushed up. 140 on Kamigawa? Wow. I hope you put it back when it was cheaper. That's really cool to see that it's that high. 115 on Brothers War, it's only about a 11-month later product than Kamigawa, and it's considerably lower in price. Wilds of Eldraine 126, of course, this is still in print and will be for a while. It'll still be standard legal for a couple more years, so we don't expect to see any movement on that for a long time. And $100 on Streets of New Capenna set boxes. Yeah, that's probably about where it should be value-wise, considering the cards in the set, the fact that it's only a standard expansion, and that it's been out for a long time. 121 on March of Machines. This is about the lowest price where a card store can expect to break even on these kind of marketplaces. Phyrexia 128 and Strixhaven 106. Now, I'm really surprised by Strixhaven there. Strixhaven collector boxes, I had mentioned the other day that they were something like 230. I went back and checked, they were 280. Did you know Strixhaven collector boxes are $280 market price? Like, how fast did that move up? It totally blindsided me. I'm glad I have a lot of them, but I would expect that the set boxes of Strixhaven would be moving up a little harder. But again, it's kind of that Print to Oblivion era. This came out in March, April of 21, and it was late 21 that we got AFR, Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow, and with just the massive print runs. And you see how the collector boxes of AFR, Midnight Hunt, and Crimson Vow are doing. We'll get to those eventually, but spoiler alert, they're not doing too great. So AFR set boxes 116, I'm actually a little surprised, when we compare it to Strixhaven. I would expect Strixhaven would have a lot more value. AFR is basically old Gnawbone or bust when you open it, and there's really not a lot else that you can chase in that. And where Strixhaven, in the set boxes, you're going to have the Mystical Archive card. So, you can pull a Demonic Tutor out of these booster packs. You sure as heck can't pull anything that good out of AFR. Lost Caverns, in print, 127. Not that interesting. Moving on, draft boxes. So Streets of New Capenna is $74. $85 for Unfinity. Man, it's amazing how old these products can get. Unfinity, that was 2022. Yeah, that was late 22, right after Dominaria United and before Brothers War. So, sometime around September, October of 22. And here we are now 2 years later, and the draft boxes are $85. You know, these unsets, it's something that WotC should maybe do every 10 years. Something like that. There's just not much demand for an unset, and man, you can tell it with the market. $100 for Kaldheim Draft. I wonder if we're going to hit a point here where Kaldheim Draft is just so far out of whack compared to Kaldheim Set that it's worth buying it or maybe even cracking it. Crimson Vow Draft 76, still doing horrible. Dominaria United Draft 94. Ooh, Commander Masters 270. Yeah, I'm glad I bought a bunch of set boxes when WotC was dumping them on Amazon. What were those? 210, 220 for the set boxes? If you're one of my patrons and you remember me telling everybody to buy some and you got in on it, tell me how much it was. 220, 230, I think. 158 for Commander Legends. Cool to see that moving up. Dominaria Remastered Draft at 111. That's still way too cheap. You know, that's the kind of thing where you look at the wholesale price of a draft box and it was what, 95, 98, something like that by the time they ended standard draft. I don't recall offhand what the wholesale price of this, a remastered set draft box was, but it's crazy underpriced, especially being, 20 months old now. A 20-month-old draft box, $111, and you can pull tutors out of this. You can pull Urza, Yawgmoth, Urza's Incubator. So many great cards you can pull out of it, and it's $111. 286 on the Double Masters draft box. That's good to see. That's getting up where it should be. It should probably be a bit higher by now, considering it is a 2-year-old product. But it's good. It's come back a lot from the doldrums of late 22 and early 23. Kamigawa draft boxes 111. That's really good to see a draft box climbing up into the 100s, one of these late draft box era boxes. Zendikar Rising Draft $85. This is just one that I would have never guessed it would stay this low this long, just like the set boxes of Zendikar Rising. Considering these have the Expedition box toppers, I would have guessed these would have gone up higher. They weren't quite caught up in the Print to Oblivion era. They were a little too early for that. But here we are, $85 for the draft boxes. $75 for Midnight Hunt. That's completely expected. Strixhaven 93. I guess I think that's probably about right. Again, given the era, given that it's a standard expansion, I don't recall how the mystical archives are done in the draft boxes. If every booster has a mystical archive card or not, so it at least has a chance at some great stuff like Demonic Tutor. I don't recall. Time Spiral Remaster 216. Not something I would have ever bet on. There have been so many false starts on that product going up in price, and then it just settles back down again in the low 200s. I don't know what it's going to take to really get it to finally take off, get some legs, and go up better. Brothers War 82. Modern Horizons 2 Draft 170. Again, this is the kind of thing where I see the fetch lands having gone up in price quite a bit in the last year, and the sealed boxes have not followed. I'm going to look into that and see if it's actually worth cracking some of them. Innistrad Double Feature 160. This has come up about $10, $20. For a little while, you were able to get it for about $125 and really do good cracking it for singles. I still have a lot of singles from that, and you know, it's the kind of thing when you break boxes for singles and you sell them off, you'll generally make all your money back and you'll make a decent profit within a couple months. You know, the expensive, desirable cards sell really fast, and then the less desirable cards sell a little slower, and on and on and on. But then you always have this long tail of cheap singles, and basically it's like you're selling a card that you acquired for a couple of cents. It has a market value of 5-10 cents, but you sell it one at a time in white envelope orders. You charge a high shipping, and you end up making $1-2 profit per order off of cheap singles for a long time. And it really supplements the profits that you make out of box breaking. $95 for AFR. Now, Lord of the Rings Draft 165. This is something I need to look into. I don't think I have bought any draft or set boxes of Lord of the Rings. I've bought so many collector boxes. I have so many of them put back in the closet, but Draft and set, I always just put it off because I thought, well, they're going to be in print for a long time. It's a good product. WotC has said they would support the Universes Beyond stuff for a long time. And so I just haven't looked into it. I need to do that for this bonus box sale and maybe finally take a position in these boxes. 95 for March of the Machines. Now, given that the set box was 120, I'm surprised the draft box is 95. Baldur's Gate, 97. Yes, I opened over 200 draft boxes of this for singles to sell. I made so much money selling singles of this. And $97 today. It's come up a lot in price. I bought most of these boxes around 70, and it's come up a lot, but the singles have come up a lot too. Phyrexia, 105. Pretty good to see. I think we're going to cut that there, and we're going to move on to play boosters. Bloomborough, 130. And it really underscores the reality that given the not just the inflationary price increases of products coming out of WotC, but then the re-engineering of the products, combining draft and set together. Well, first you create the problem of set that jacks up prices over draft, and then you fix that problem you created by combining draft and set instead of just getting rid of set and going back to draft. And you create play booster boxes, which then are engineered to drive up the price more. And now we're at the point where a small card store, you've got to sell these boxes for $140 on these marketplaces to break even, where just a couple years ago, they could sell draft boxes for $110 and break even. And so it's a whole different market, and arguably there's more value in them. Is there 30-40% more value? That's really debatable. They've tried to re-engineer the mix of cards inside, and I opened some play boxes recently. I opened about 8 or 9 of them, and yeah, I got 3 special guest cards out of 8 or 9 boxes, and each of the special guest cards was about $10. So what's that? Another $4 per box from special guests, and you start weighing in all those engineering differences they did in play boxes and trying to decide, is this really worth it? And it's hard to tell, but that's undoubtedly why the market rejected Murders at Karlov Manor so hard at the beginning. Still $94. Outlaw still $120. And you can see just this progression as we get one standard set after another getting their play boxes released, and how the market is kind of accepting, hey, this is the reality. And at some point, even that stuff like $90 in the Car Rising draft boxes, the cheap Strixhaven boxes, $95 AFR draft boxes, those are going to dry up, and people playing small drafts around the kitchen table will have to then resort to all of these. Eventually, WotC will force the market upwards by repricing boxes higher, but man, it's amazing to see how long it's taking the market to stubbornly come along with it, because people don't want to pay that much more. I think most people don't feel like they're getting enough additional value for the extra price. Now, Modern Horizons 3 play boosters. Again, I don't have any of these. I bought 6 of the collector boxes when they first came out. I think I got good prices on them. I bought them for, I don't know, I checked it a couple days ago. It was pretty close. The current market price was pretty close to what I had bought them for. So $199, $204 at the market price. Seems okay. Duskmorn pre-selling for $140. And see, that's actually a reasonable price. That's the reality of it. So moving on to collector boxes. Bloomborough Collectors $220. I'm going to be getting some of those on the bonus buck sale. Kaldheim's still at $170. And Infinity's still $174. Some of these older ones with higher print runs, it's just amazing how long it's taking them to bounce back, and they're still resisting. $175 for Dominaria United. Foundations, I don't think you should be buying this. I think that price is going to come down a lot, considering WotC says they're going to support this product, at least on the non-collector boxes, for, what was it, like 5 years or 7 years? Something crazy like that. Commander Legends, $400. That seems okay. Ravnica Remastered at $307. That seems fine. But it really shows you how mispriced the Dominaria Remastered collector boxes are at $188. That's cheaper than a standard expansion collector box. And this is the same thing I said about the draft boxes. You've got the Tutors, you got the Incubator, you've got Urza, you've got Yawgmoth, you've got all these great cards. And for some reason, these boxes, like the whole market just still takes such a negative attitude on these boxes despite how much value is in them. It's incredibly underpriced. Zendikar Rising collectors, of course, 2 Expedition box toppers and the foil Expedition lands within the packs. $230. This has come up a lot slower than I expected. You know, when I compare it against something like Strixhaven at 285, Kamigawa at 250. Yeah, here's Kamigawa at 250. Then Zendikar Rising at 230 just seems way underpriced. And here we are, the really unloved ones: Midnight Hunt 118 and Crimson Vow 130. You know, from time to time I think, you know, I ought to buy about a dozen of those at those cheap prices and just throw them to the back of the closet and forget about them for a couple of years. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of conviction that when these do start to move, they're going to move really fast. And that's something you'll sometimes see, that rubber band will get pulled too tight by the market sentiment, just keeping a product down for a long, long time. And then when it finally does move, it'll snap up really, really hard. Fallout collector boxes, 541 seems all right. And Brothers War 213, these have really resisted going up for a long time. They've just been held at the same about $10 to $20 price point around the low 200s for 6 months now. I mean, I've been selling them to patrons and selling them on TCG Player, and they're a very, very slow mover. Murders 160. This is underpriced. No matter what you think about Murders, what you think about it being a standard set, 160 for a standard expansion collector box is underpriced. They shouldn't be that cheap, especially nowadays with the lower print runs. This is one where I would expect it to eventually spring up a lot harder. Let's see, page 2. Modern Horizons 3 collectors. Wow, 334, so that's fallen down a bit. That's actually where you might consider getting some more. Duskmourn pre-sales, 229. That's the correct price. 233 for March of the Machines. 270 for Doctor Who. This is way underpriced. Doctor Who has too many cards that are way too good. I've opened a lot of boxes of these collectors of Doctor Who to sell singles. They sell unbelievably well, and so many of the cards that sell so unbelievably well are IP restricted cards. They are the Doctors. They are things named after stuff from the Doctor Who IP. And so I don't understand how WotC is going to be able to reprint those very easily and get more copies out there into the market. So I expect that these are going to go up pretty hard once we see that the supply has tightened up a bit. So yeah, I think 270 is way underpriced at this point. Wilds of Eldraine, 295. That's okay. That's come up a bit more. Double Masters 22. You know, I'll open a bottle of champagne the day that gets back up to the $270 release day price. So $243 right now. That's probably a fair price. You know, this was the first time that WotC said, "Hey, let's put 4 booster packs into a collector box instead of 12 and see if people still buy them." And yeah, it's a master set. It's got some great cards in it, but man, it was expensive. And the market price, even now, 2 years after release, is still paying the price for how expensive it was. Here we are, Strixhaven collectors, 287. And you know, I was a believer in Strixhaven collectors. I want to say I have 10 or 12 of them, maybe, which is more than I have of most collector boxes. But I was a believer in that. The problem was I was also a believer in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and I have more AFR collector boxes put back for the long term than any other collector box, and that's not working out right now. 132 for Streets of New Capenna. Okay. You know, the Gilded Foil cards just didn't do it. The set was weak. It's standard expansion. Came out in the wrong time. It was probably overprinted. Nothing to chase. But again, like Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, I look at those prices and I think, is that going to spring upwards one day when people realize, all those boxes have been chewed through over the last 3 years? I don't know. I just haven't had the conviction to actually buy in and enlarge my position in them. Assassin's Creed 220. Yes, 220. Down from the 380 peak. Do you guys remember when these were $380? Everybody thought, and you know, maybe they weren't crazy, But everybody thought, oh, the Fallout collector boxes, those went to the moon really fast. And they thought this would be a repeat. And, well, it just hasn't turned out to be. Outlaws, 185. This is too low. I think this is safe to buy at this point. Theros Beyond Death, 200. That's way too low given that it's also a standard expansion. And it's 4 years old now. 227 for a core set collector box. I think that's probably about right. You know, core sets are going to be full of cards that have been printed to death already, and a collector box based on it, and then you see that it's 4 years old now. Of course, core set 21 came out in 2020, and 227 is probably a pretty reasonable price nowadays. Ikoria, 312. Maybe I'll buy one of those one day. Let's see if we have much on page 3. Oh yeah, Phyrexia, 239. That's a good price. We like to see it. Like to see things coming up like that. We do like to see occasional standard expansions jump up in price like this when they're engineered just right. You probably wouldn't want to see every standard expansions collector box do that, but somewhere in between the performance of what we're seeing with something like, Bloomburrow, where it's staying over 200, Wilds of Eldraine, where it's at the high 200s, and Lost Caverns, where it's at 340, sorry. Somewhere in that range is where we'd like to always land. We'd like to have a distribution in between there going on here now, 10, 11 months after Lost Caverns came out. That's kind of the performance we'd like to see. Collector box, it should be collectible. It shouldn't go down in price when it comes out. And so any performance from 250 to 350 after a year would be really good. You would hope that WotC could manage to engineer that over the long term consistently. Speaking of that, 149 on AFR. Yep, old gnaw bone or bust, as I said before. And 200 on Baldur's Gate. Again, I've opened a lot of these. They have a lot of value in them. So far, they're still the only place to get the Ancient Dragons. And those are still selling very well, whether you look at it from a price standpoint or a velocity standpoint. March of the Machine Aftermath, $85 where it deserves to be. And we will move on now to Flesh and Blood. Rosetta pre-orders $88. That's about right for a Flesh and Blood pre-order. And then you see once the boxes come out, they stay around in the 70s for a while and eventually go lower when they become less relevant. Uprising's about 2 years old now, something like that. Of course, Bright Lights never got a good shake because it was too focused on one class, and kind of people just didn't take to that. I feel like Legend Story Studios was trying to do something innovative with steering the meta in a certain direction for a while when they did that. And they thought, hey, we'll make one class the focus of this expansion, and it'll really power it up in the meta for a little while, and then later on we'll compensate for it. And I think that's something you can try to do. I don't understand why it failed. I'd be interested if you have any ideas. Part the Misfail, 76. Monarch First Edition, $60. Still just having trouble gaining traction. I've been looking at a lot of these, the early boxes, especially the first 3 unlimited boxes, Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War. And the unlimited versions of those boxes, the supplies are tightening up a lot. When you go to the second round of boxes, Tales of Aria, Monarch, and Everfest, it's a bit different. Yeah, there's a lot of Monarch out there still. Tales of Aria is starting to tighten up, and Everfest, there's still just a ton out there, even though they will never release the unlimited. Many months ago, James from LSS said that they actually had the unlimited printing destroyed. So it does not exist and it can never come to market. And yet the first edition boxes, there's still a ton of depth in the market just here on TCG Player. The thing with Flesh and Blood is after they converted over to Fab 2.0, it lost a lot of its attractiveness to the short-term investors. And so now it's more of a long-term play on Flesh and Blood, continuing to remain a successful game, continuing to be well managed, and continuing to attract new players. And so it's kind of like the reserve list is right now, and like Vintage Magic is right now. It's just not getting a lot of love by the market. But in a way, that's probably stretching the rubber band tighter, and at some point, it will snap back. Tales of Aria First Edition, 54. Crucible of War Unlimited, 70. And the case prices are starting to diverge from the individual box prices. We're starting to see that more and more as the cases become less common. And moving on to Pokemon, Twilight Masquerade 138. Yeah, wait for reprints on that. It's a brand new set. Obsidian Flame 113. That's about where a recent standard expansion booster box should be. Temporal Forces 105. Brilliant Stars 185. You know, this is probably going to be the next one to break $200. I think it's closest without already going over. Of course, we had Lost Origin was the most recent one to break $200. But Brilliant Stars will get there in time. Of course, Pokemon Center is out of boxes of those. After I made the video several days ago talking about just that, I went back and checked. It was Vivid Voltage and Battle Styles and Silver Tempest are the 3 Sword and Shield era boxes they still have for MSRP on Pokemon Center. And so that's why you see Silver Tempest. Yeah, it's 160. You can get it on Pokemon Center for 144, but it's not going to rise much more than that. That really underscores one of the big differences over here in the TCG market compared to securities and bonds and other things is that there's a lot of inefficiency. The market is much slower, the volumes are lower, the velocities are lower, and so you can get pricing inefficiencies like that where you can either buy here on TCG Player for $161 for a Silver Tempest booster box, or you can buy it from Pokemon Center for $144. And that's a pretty big difference in price. It's a 10% difference, but that kind of thing regularly happens in the TCG market. And if you can stay abreast of the prices, you can create kind of a mental map constantly of what all the prices look like, then you can find those kind of pricing discrepancies and those inefficiencies and exploit them. Rebel Clash 220, it's a hair bit disheartening to see that a 4-year-old box is only 220, but it'll eventually get there. Paradox Rift, SVO4, 102, that's a good price. And Scarlet and Violet base, 92. Surging Sparks pre-orders at 144, skip that. It is just a regular standard box. It will come down. And we'll go to page 2 here on Pokemon. Astral Radiance, 168. Fusion Strike, 214. Yes, I will never forget the people claiming that this was always going to be worthless. It was printed to oblivion, and how quickly it went up to $200. Vivid Voltage 139. Again, Pokemon Center has it for 144, so it puts a kind of soft ceiling on it. Evolving Skies, that's had a lot of trouble breaking 700. It's come up against it several times and then always comes back down a bit. It's been interesting watching that, but it's been probably 6 months it's been trying to break 700 a box. Chilling Rain 206 on the market price. You could almost think that that has a chance of losing the $200 price point. I kind of doubt it, but you know, at a time that was up to the 210s and the low 220s, so it has come down a little bit. Battle Styles 131, the worst performer of the Sword and Shield era, $131. Any other Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet here? Team Up, Unified, Dark Explorers. No, that's it. All right, so that was a pretty good walk through the market just to see what it's doing right now, see where the prices are. You know, I spend some time every day walking through the market like that, just scrolling prices, looking at stuff, occasionally looking up some of the underlying cards from a specific box that do the most to drive that specific box, just trying to keep that mental roadmap of the prices of the market. And if you spend some time every day doing that, once in a while you spend a little extra time like this, going through the entire market at once, you do really build up a strong mental map. And that way, when you're over on eBay or you're on another site or you're in a local store or you're anywhere else, and you see a really good deal, you can identify that it's a really good deal. And that's something that's been very, very successful for me in this business over the last 3.5 years, is just being able to recognize, hey, I think that's $30, $40, $50 under the market price, or understanding that the cards that drive the price of a box are maybe themselves underpriced, and you can pick that up and arbitrage the singles. So there's always opportunities like that if you just take the time to walk through the market regularly and see what all the prices look like. So there's a bonus buck sale this Friday, the 13th. Like I said, I have my affiliate link down below for TCG Player, the site-wide link. It helps out a ton if you use it. Doesn't cost you anything, and TCG Player kicks back 1 to 3% of what you spend to me to help me out for referring people over there. So I always appreciate it if you use that. It helps keep Final Trade going, keeps the content coming, and helps me to continue to expand this into hopefully a full-time business. Let me know what you're looking for out in the market, and if you're a patron, my bonus buck sale thread went up last night. I'll continue updating that through the sale day with eventually what I actually ended up buying on the morning of the sale. So let me know what you see out there, what you think, any ideas you have, anything else. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.